Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Mark, and as always, I'm here with Jenny.
Hi Mark, excited to dive into today's topic. We're talking about Anthropic's new Claude 3.7 Sonnet model, right?
That's right. And oh man, this is the cool part. This model is not just an upgrade, it's a whole new approach to how AI thinks. They're calling it a hybrid reasoning times model.
Okay, wait, hybrid reasoning? Let me get this straight. What does that even mean in the context of AI?
So basically, it's like this. Claude 3.7 Sonnet can switch between two modes of thinking. One is super fast, like when you just know times the answer. The other is slower, more deliberate, where it shows you its step-by-step reasoning.
That's fascinating. But how does it, decide which times mode to use?
That's the clever bit. It has an algorithm that automatically selects the best mode based on the question. Or, you can actually times it which mode you want it to use.
You know what this reminds me of? That whole System 1 and System 2 feet thinking concept, like in thinking, fast and slow.
Exactly. It's kind of like, when you're driving and you suddenly react to something without consciously thinking? That's System 1. Claude's fast mode is like that. System 2 is when you're, carefully planning a complex route. That's the extended thinking mode.
I can already hear our listeners thinking, okay, that sounds cool, but what's the practical application?
Right? Well, one huge area is coding. They've actually released this tool called Claude Code that integrates directly into the developer's terminal.
Hold up, can we break that down? A terminal-based coding assistant? What does that look like?
Picture this. You're coding, you hit a snag, and instead of spending hours debugging, you ask Claude. It can not only find the error, but also explain why times it's an error, and even suggest fixes, all in that extended step-by-step mode.
So it's not just fixing code, it's teaching you how times to fix it. I like that.
And it's showing its work? It's like having a coding buddy who's also a super patient tutor. I was just reading about this AWS case study. They saw a 73% reduction times in code review time using this.
Wow, that's a serious efficiency boost. But I have to ask the obvious question, what about the cost? Is this some super expensive, enterprise-only thing?
Here's the thing about the pricing. It's surprisingly competitive. They're charging $3 per million input tokens and $15 per million output tokens, which, compared to, say, GPT-4o, is significantly cheaper.
Okay, so it's more affordable, but what about those extended thinking tokens? Are those extra?
That's where it gets interesting. The extended thinking times steps are counted as output tokens. So you're essentially paying for the extra computation it does when it's showing you its reasoning.
So you can kind of control the budget by deciding how much deep thinking you need it to do.
Precisely. They have this API where you can set a token budget for different tasks. It's all about giving developers control.
This is all sounding very utopian. But what about the ethical side? I'm thinking about things like job displacement. With all this automation.
That's a great point, and something Anthropic is clearly thinking about. One of the things they're emphasizing is the time transparency times of the reasoning process. It's not a black box. You can see asterisk how it arrives at its conclusions.
So in theory, that makes it easier to audit and understand, which is important for accountability.
Right. But it also raises questions, like if an AI can do a complex task and times explain its reasoning, does that make it easier to automate that task entirely, potentially replacing human workers?
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? The very thing that makes it more trustworthy, its transparency, might also make it more disruptive.
And then there's the whole regulatory landscape. We're seeing things like the EU AI Act, which is going to put a lot of pressure on AI developers to be very clear about how their models work.
So looking ahead, where do you see this technology going? Beyond coding, I mean.
Oh man, the possibilities. I was reading about potential applications in pharmaceutical research, like simulating drug trials. Imagine using that extended thinking mode to model complex biological interactions.
That's incredible. It's like having a super-powered research assistant that can explore thousands of possibilities.
And they're talking about expanding into healthcare and even the automotive industry. Basically, any field that requires complex decision-making could benefit.
It sounds like this hybrid reasoning approach could become the new standard, right?
I think so. It's not just about making AI faster or more powerful. It's about making it more understandable and, ultimately, more useful.
Well, this has been incredibly enlightening, Mark. Thanks for breaking it all down for us.
My pleasure, Jenny, and to our listeners. If you're curious to learn more, we'll have links to all the resources we mentioned in the show notes, including that AWS case study and Anthropic's blog post.